afternoon, welcome to the UK Column News. It is the 18th of June 2014 and it's just gone 1 o'clock. Myself, Louise Collins, Brian Kerridge and Mike Robinson are here in Plymouth, and we have Guy Taylor joining us via Skype from Herefordshire. How you doing? How did it go?
Well, we do the weather first of all. It's very hot and sunny here in Plymouth. We've got a bit of misty rain cloud, but a bit of sunshine in Norfolk, so mixed bag across the country. But I'm going to say it's pretty hot here in Plymouth, and it's very hot in the studio. So we've got a pretty packed news today, and the main theme is really what is going on in the country at the moment. Louis is going to talk us through some quite extraordinary things happening at a local level within schools for young children, for example. We're then going to deal with the Reset Initiative, which is, in our opinion, a dangerous globalist agenda in working to close down the British Constitution and ultimately undermine common law. Mike will be dealing with that. And then we'll be coming on to the real dangers of what's happening in UK at the moment by talking you through the extraordinary events at Guy and Linda Taylor's house yesterday, where bailiffs attempted yet another fraudulent eviction. So this is the state really now trying to take control, take people's children away and property. First of all, though, we're going to kick off with Robert Green, 29 days under house arrest in Warrington. And basically remember that he has to sleep at his house, contact the police daily. He's not allowed to use the internet, which is already causing a problem with his defence. How is all this possible? Well, because Scotland is now controlled by a junta of Sir Stephen House, the Chief of Police Scotland, Alex Salmon, and Kenny McCaskill controlling the legal side. And we've pointed out that as a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, Robert Green spent those 3 months and 1 week in prison. Now he's 29 days under house arrest. We can expect similar type activity south of the border unless we start fighting for our constitution and common law. But we'd just like to point out that Violate, the fetish club that was linked into trouble at Mill with the judiciary in Scotland, we became aware a few days ago that they'd posted a notice saying that Violate is sadly cancelled until further notice. They say you can join them at another internet address. However, I think that is a secure address. But the key thing about this is that sources close to Robert Green allege that the Violate Club had members who were senior members of the Scottish judiciary and court staff. Now, this is only an allegation, but what we can tell you for certain is that Robert Green was interrogated constantly by the police, effectively Grampian police, as was, who took him north of the border after his arrest at home. So the key questioning was not about his activities in relation to abuse victim Holly Gregg, but it was in relation to what he knew about the Violate Club and possible connections with the legal system in Scotland. So we'll leave you, our audience today, to think about what that really means. We'll keep you posted as and when we have new information. So, what is the state of the nation as far as schools are concerned?
Well, the state of the nation is that a primary school in Kent has caused total uproar and shock when they allowed children as young as 4 to take part in a pole dancing display at their annual summer fete. Crockenhill Primary invited revolutions. If we can just have the side. Here's Crockenhill Primary School, which is in Kent. And here is Revolutions. They're a pole academy. And the primary school invited them to come and do a display at the annual fete. The display included some pupils from the school and a teacher. The youngest of the pupils was just a mere 4 years of age. One parent said it was totally inappropriate, as was the clothing, and many parents walked out in disgust. When questions about the display were asked to Revolutions, they said they offer classes for children from the age of 4 and it promotes excellent fitness. And when the head teacher, Mrs. Warshaw, was asked about why they had allowed this to go on, she said the dance company came along and they were involved in aerial skills, and it's run by someone who is within the local community. It's great for the children to keep fit, and it's a great deal of fun. We felt it was good to support it. There is nothing sleazy about it. And Brian, I thought you might be interested in this. On one of their little drop-down boxes, they have Every Child Matters.
Yeah, so is this common sense gone out the window, or is there something more sinister here that we're dribbling in not dribbling it in, we're ramming in an agenda into schools so that we're getting very young children sexualised?
Totally sexualised, yeah, absolutely.
And apparently this head teacher doesn't recognise this, or perhaps she does, and that's why they've adopted Every Child Matters.
Possibly.
So madness in the schools, and if we apply common sense to a little bit of a housing issue, we come up with this story.
Yeah, this was sent to me by Paul, a viewer. So it caught my eye actually last year when a young family who owned some land decided they no longer wanted to live in their mobile home that was on the site. They decided to build a little eco house with their own, literally with their bare hands, using only local and natural resources. They unfortunately never applied for planning permission, and last year they were ordered by Pembrokeshire Council to tear their home down. Well, the story literally went viral. A petition was set up with 30-odd thousand people backing it, some from America and Asia. And Charlie Haig and Megan Williams are the owners of this property. And since then, they've actually submitted another retrospective planning application after being issued with a demolition notice. And it's taken a year for the council actually to put it up as discussion. And that's going to be held actually on next Tuesday. So it's worth keeping an eye. So it's a little local home. It looks better. I mean, look at it. It's beautiful.
Well, the key thing is that home's got to be destroyed because there weren't any rules when it was put up. But can we deal with child abuse? Well, no.
No. Yeah.
Can we investigate the crime around people's homes being perpetuated? Well, no, we can't do that either. But somebody's built something which, okay, maybe they didn't get planning permission, but it looks a fantastic effort to me.
Yeah, and it looks better than a mobile home stuck out there, doesn't it?
Common sense disappeared out the door. Yep. Now, on that subject, we think we need to bring common sense very much back into the agenda. And the UK column is going to warn and continue to warn about the dangers of a global initiative called Reset. Over to you, Mike.
Okay, well, that was the front page of the column, and it's already creating waves, as it was designed to do. The front page is highlighting this constitutional campaign called the Reset, which is a campaign fronted by a gentleman called Ray Savage. Now, we are receiving some criticism for this, not least this article on the Community Press Group website. And Matthew D here clearly very, very disappointed by what we've published, and he has written a piece detailing his concerns. And I think they probably need addressed, so let's just do that. Now, his first concern is really an allegation that I was lying in the article. So let's look at that first. In the article, I wrote that Clive had planned to have a guest on his programme to speak about a conference that Clive was taking part at. And instead of speaking about that conference, Mr. Savage decided that he was going to talk about a constitutional campaign called the Reset. I said this came as a complete surprise to both Clive and the production team at the UK column. Now, Matthew suggests that this was a deliberate act of misinformation because when you watch the video, Clive really seems to know what the topic of discussion is about. But of course, just prior to having Ray Savage on the programme, we were showing a video of Clive, I believe, was making some chocolate or something like that. So there was some discussion on Skype off the air just before we came on. The bottom line is that it's probably correct to say that Ray Savage had always intended to talk about the Reset, but of course that wasn't what the slot was originally designed, set up for. The slot was to talk about the conference, and so I believe I'm correct in what I said in that article. So hopefully that clears that up. But moving on, the article on the Reset, which was published to highlight the latest campaign in what is clearly a global reset movement. A whole series of separate campaigns suddenly sprung up in the last several months or year or so, and that in itself should probably raise suspicions. The term reset is now part of the language of many global leaders, including Cameron Obama, Christine Lagarde, as mentioned in this little post, Hillary Clinton, to name a few, all using that as part of their daily language. And as we've already highlighted this week, we're resetting the net, and we pointed out that that's funded by all the usual suspects, the Albert List Foundation, the Carnegie Corporation, Ford Foundation, Open Society Institute, Park Foundation, and so on. But we're also resetting religion, and I strongly recommend that people go and watch some of the videos being produced by this little network called the Reset Movement. We're resetting education, we're resetting our futures, we're resetting business, we're resetting culture, we're resetting civilization, in fact, and we're resetting science. And in fact, here, Oxford University is involved in resetting science. We're resetting ecology, we're resetting currency, we're resetting the NHS, we're resetting the system itself, in fact, according to George Soros, and we're resetting sustainability. And in fact, of course, it's not just at a local level, because it's at a global level as well, because here we've got the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development is going to reset the world, apparently. So we're going to reset the world, and of course we're resetting the Constitution. So this was David Miliband in 2010 calling for a series of referenda in order to reset the Constitution, and that's what David Cameron's pledge over Magna Carta is about, of course. It's about a reset of people's views on what Magna Carta is, what it's about, what it represents. And he's going to start off in the schools to reset people's minds on what Magna Carta is. Now, it might seem like a small thing, mere semantics, but the tagline for the British Constitution Group is, and always has been, to reassert the Constitution. Now, there's only 3 letters difference between reassert and reset, but those extra letters, in fact, do make all the difference. A reset means switching off and starting all over again. Now, Alex G will be proud of me for making this analogy, but isn't it the case that this is exactly what they did with Star Trek recently? A reset, a reboot. It ended up with a whole new timeline, a whole new story, and that's what reset is about. Changing. It's about change. So to reassert, on the other hand, is about making the statement about what the principles are that this nation was based on and governed by, and a reassertion of those principles, not a change of those principles. And of course, those principles still stand, even though they've been treasonously trampled underfoot. So this is what we're talking about here, a reinstatement, a reassertion, not a reset. And those, by the way, who have been trampling the Constitution underfoot, including the monarch, who's in breach of her coronation oath, should probably be prosecuted for treason. Getting back to Matthew's article, then, he really is saying that the piece in the UK column is just a hit piece, no more than mudslinging. I would say that it's not. We've quite intentionally stayed away from mudslinging and infighting over the years because there are bigger issues at stake, and this is one of those bigger issues. It's no good uniting, as Matthew calls for here. It's no good uniting if what you're uniting around is fundamentally a bad idea. And actually, by the way, just to set the record straight here, I do not believe that Ray Savage is a bad guy, but I do believe he's got some pretty bad guys around him. And Polly Higgins, case in point, right? And he's been drawn into a campaign which we believe is not working in the interests of the country or in the interests of us as individuals. Maybe some will view our targeting of Ray personally through the Savage Destruction subheadline is a bit unfair, but in fact, Ray has chosen to front this organisation, so sorry about that. Now, Matthew feels, as I say, that the article is simple mudslinging. That's not what it's about. The various reset campaigns are helping to build a global reset movement, and what's on the other side of that movement is not nice, in my opinion. So this is a global movement, and its constituent parts need to be watched very closely. And I'm sorry, but thereset.org is one of those constituent parts.
Well, Mike, thank you very much for giving that very concise report there on the dangers of Reset. UK column will just continue to warn about this global organisation and what it's really aiming for. And of course, we cannot have the stupid and bizarre situation where one person's reset is different to another. If we go back to Common Purpose had to be exposed not only as the political charity Common Purpose, but also what the globalist agenda of Common Purpose was. So if I give an analogy with Reset, it would be like, people saying, well, we're Common Purpose, but of course we're not really Julia Middleton's Common Purpose. What does that do? Totally confuses the general public and prevents us waking up Middle England. So on Reset, the UK column is clear. If you're promoting a Reset agenda, you are helping to promote George Soros and his march towards a single world government. And that's it. So we know what's happening around us. A couple of little articles, important articles from Louise, nonetheless, that the state is now encroaching on us. And then we're going to show by our interview with Guy Taylor, where is this really leading unless we, the public, grip it? Google,
just very quickly then. GCHQ are playing sneaky. They are using the external communications to spy on British Facebook as Google and Twitter users. So external communication means that GCHQ are not subject to the rules that govern information posted on websites that are based in Britain. GCHQ do not need any individual warrants now to monitor these sites because the sites are from abroad. So they can just go in as they like and monitor everything that is being done on Facebook, Twitter, etc. So very, very dangerous. But a statement come out from GCHQ said all its work is carried out in accordance with a strict legal and policy framework which ensures our activities are authorised, necessary and proportionate. So they're just going in by other rules anyways to look at what we're doing, and it's on anything.
Yeah, it's pretty clear what's going on, isn't it? The dictatorship is forming. We've got the full state spying and surveillance system. We've also got the rise of David Cameron's Stasi through the MAPA, the multi-agency public protection arrangement, which simply reports on people behind closed doors and decides if they're to be arrested or sectioned. So this is not Eastern Europe, this is not Stalinist Russia we're talking about, this is the state of David Cameron, Nick Clegg, of course, what's really happening in Britain today.
Yeah.
And children, as always, in the firing line.
Okay, I'm actually trying to figure out who has made this statement, but I can't find where it's come from. But what this statement is saying, that children's pranks should be treated as crimes. Hugh Ord, who is president of ACPO, has spoken out at the ACPO annual conference saying that police are under increasing pressure to record playground hijinks as crimes. He acknowledged that it's causing real frustration to chief constables who believe they should have discretion to focus their efforts elsewhere. But I personally, I don't know how Mike and Brian feel about this. I think it could be leading to this. Okay, a social worker for every child that's going on in Scotland. So more crimes, little silly crimes that kids are doing in the playground end up getting reported to the police. The kids end up with a criminal record, and this is the solution. Brian, your thoughts?
Well, I totally agree with that. I think that we've got a model that's been put in place in Scotland. Robert Greene is the classic example of what happens when you get a dictatorship in place. People lifted off the streets and put straight into prison, held without charge. That now continues for Robert under house arrest. So has the Scottish junta picked up the paedophiles clearly operating at high level? No, we simply put the innocent people in prison to shut them up. And we know that the Every Child Matters programme, sold as a means of protecting children by social services, in our opinion, is the very agenda which is designed to get control of children. So children's pranks have become crime. Meanwhile, if you're a banker, you're fleecing whole nations, you're protected. Or if you're a paedophile residing in Westminster or the higher levels of the establishment, you're protected. So we've got a complete inversion of common sense here. For those spiritually minded, what's coming in is clearly satanic law. Do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. This is going to be very vicious unless we do something about it. So that probably moves on to the good news. And this was the hot topic from yesterday, which was basically an attempt by to use fraudulent court documents to repossess the home of Guy and Linda Taylor in Herefordshire. And what happened was, as a result of a call for good people to attend, there was about 35, 40 people turned up in order to stand by Guy and Linda and protect their interests. So this is before the main events of the day. Peaceful public supporters standing at Guy's garden wall, ready to wait for the bailiffs. We'll now show you a short film clip of what took place. We'll then run you through the full day, and then we're going to bring Guy on in order to interview him.
How you doing? All right? How you doing? All right?
Morning, you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine. And unfortunately, we've uncovered that inside the court process itself, in the county court, it's not fit for purpose. We've been examining court documentation, and we've got a forensic examiner who's actually an expert in that. And so we are initiating private criminal prosecutions all over this country based on fraudulent documentation. So what I'm saying to you before you engage, because there's no disrespect, is that now upon notification of this matter to you, in your acting capacity, it's your job then to find out whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. Yeah. Now, a further element to this, where I can expose the fraud, is this property that you're coming to try and possess, right? There's supposed to be some charge against me and a possession order based on that. Yeah. Have you checked the land registry document? Because I checked it last night, and they have no charge against me on this property. I'm going to show you. It's in your little packet. There is no charge against me.
Who you are?
Take your hand off me.
I'm arresting you because you've got a fraudulent document.
Officer.
I'm arresting you. You have a fraudulent document.
Leave him alone.
I'm arresting you. You have got a fraudulent document, and it's arrestable offence. Well, you won't let him run away, will you?
Just let go of his arm.
You won't let him run away.
Just let go of his arm.
You won't. No, I've arrested him. You know yourself. If you arrest somebody, you're supposed to take hold of them. So I don't care if I'm liable. I've arrested him. I've arrested him. Do you understand? Will you take him? Will you take him into custody for possession? No, I won't. I've arrested him.
Will you take hold of his arm then?
Okay.
You arrest him.
Just let him go.
Will you take him into custody, Inspector?
You'll be acting outside the law.
Inspector,
Don't arrest him.
is there a law against that?
If you continue,
And just photograph me telling this officer he's acting outside his duty.
I've got it on video.
Are you going to arrest the real criminal? Guy was trying to present evidence to you, and you would not come over to see that. You ignored him. Completely ignored him. It's a fraudulent document.
it's not my position to do a High Court officer's
It's
job.
your position to investigate a crime. It's your job.
I'm not going to argue with you. You need to understand, you've got High Court officers, okay, executing a High Court writ. Whether I agree with you or not, okay, whether I agree with you or not, actually, that's not why we're here.
Inspector.
But you've had a crime pointed out to you, and you have an obligation now that you've been given
You
notice.
say I've had a crime pointed out to me. I don't know that.
Okay.
I've just told you about it. I've just told you about it.
Can I suggest to you then that what Guy has been saying and what I have been saying and many others have been saying, if these so-called judges are going to stand under the orders that they're giving, they should be signed and sealed. They're not. Look at the documents you're getting these days.
Well, an extraordinary film clip. Thank you very much to Malcolm Massey, who took that shot yesterday. A wonderful little synopsis of what took place. We'll take you through a few other pictures to give people a feel for the day and what took place, and then we'll bring in Guy Taylor, who's going to tell us firsthand what he felt happened yesterday. Sorry, we just jumped back one. Well, here we are, Guy Taylor basically taking on the bailiff at his gate. And the key thing about the day was that everybody there was peaceful and well behaved. And as the West Mercia inspector in charge of the operation said to me personally at the end of the day, it was the excellent behaviour by people that really made his job easy. And whilst we may have some criticism of the police, it was obvious that police officers there were curious and they were keen to learn why people were there and why they were taking this action. Well, Guy hasn't seen this before, but here was one of the court documents in the hand of the bailiff. And of course, a key part of this whole extraordinary saga around the fraudulent action against Guy concerns fraudulent court documents not properly stamped or from the wrong court or not having any signature on. And I was intrigued to see this in the bailiff's hand. And, well, what county court had this document come from?
It's a stamp. I learnt this from Guy when he was on my show on Monday. That's just a stamp. Every official document should have an actual seal on it. So one, hasn't got where it's come from or the date, and it's a stamp and not a seal.
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant. We'll ask Guy about that one because that's his territory. Now let's just look at the people brought in. We say these men were brought in because they were designed to intimidate members of the public. So we're calling them renter-heavy. Many people on the day said what we're looking at it's thugs brought in order to enforce crime in Britain's courts. Peaceful Village ultimately brought to a halt by bailiffs, private security firms and the police. And why has this come about? Because criminal activity in Britain's courts is now meaning that not just for Guy and Linda, thousands of people across the country are having property and children unlawfully taken. Well, at a particular time, it became obvious that all was not going well for the bailiffs. And this is one of the first little discussions I witnessed, which indicated to me there were a few problems in the bailiff's camp. These are the sorts of men brought in. They were hiding up the road. Security thugs, grossly unfit, huge bellies. But at the end of the day, this is serious stuff when we've got young men like this pretending he's some US SWAT team. And the fact that these thugs are hiding behind the protection of the police. Here he's standing behind the police vehicle. This is the disgraceful state of Britain today, where Britain's police are being lured into assisting what is blatantly wrong, blatantly criminal activity. Now, if you're thinking, what on earth do we do about this? Well, this lady was doing exactly the right thing because she spent a great deal of time talking to this policeman, explaining to him what was really going on and why he needed, as an individual, a human being, to understand that unless the police do their correct job, they are also at risk of the state. So talking to people in a sensible way and, of course, filming things. And as I've just said earlier, big thank you to Malcolm Massey for his excellent video. Many other people had cameras there. This is what we need: peaceful presence, watchful eyes, and lots of video cameras.
Where's his food?
He'll have a bag of sandwiches there somewhere. Now, here's where it begins to unravel. All of the bailiffs beginning to kick the dust as they realised that their action was about to fail. And of course, that would have meant for some of them at least their paychecks were going to go. But who was this super smooth young man? He was extraordinary. He stood with this rather strange look on his face watching the action. I didn't get a warm feel about him. I'd suspect he's something to do with the courts, a solicitor maybe. But has this man got the best interests of the British public at heart? I don't think so.
He looks a bit worried to me.
He does look worried. Yeah. Well, that was when it was all coming unravelled for them. Well, we've seen on video the citizen's arrest. And what happens when you carry out a citizen's arrest now? Do the police arrest the criminals? No, they arrest the person trying to do the right thing. But this is where we realised that things were going particularly well. Renter mob discussing their loss of bonus before departing with lots of people looking at them. And the bailiffs couldn't wait to get in their cars and disappear off up the road. I'm missing an I there from bailiffs. Somebody will tell me off for that. A spelling error, disgraceful. But here are the bailiffs on their way.
Run away, run away.
They were running away, absolutely. So before we bring Guy in, let's just have a look at the irony of the West Mercia police wagon, which had a Crime Stoppers advert on the sign. Well, it's pointless calling West Mercia police to stop crime because they're likely to arrest the person reporting the crime. Yeah. But at the end of the day, the good news was lawful rebellion, people on the streets, people being peaceful, discussing the issues with the police, but collecting the evidence did the job. So, Guy, are you there?
Yes, Brian, I'm here, sir.
Hi, Guy.
Well,
you had a bit of a problem with your volume, with the sound on the film you showed there. There was no volume on it. It was just you guys talking.
It's okay. Everybody else heard it. It was just you. Don't worry.
Right. Okay. Sorry, that's my mistake.
Well, the Guy, you've got the camera, you've got the floor. Tell us from your point of view and Linda's point of view, of course, what really happened yesterday.
Right. Well, first, Brian, it wasn't a repossession. The mortgage company for this property aren't even interested in possessing the property. It was based on a fraudulent bankruptcy that was taken out against me, and which just contains fraudulent documents. Even the land registry the night before yesterday, we got a printout, and there's not even a charge on the property for what they're trying to collect against me. So the whole thing is just completely an engineered fraud by local establishment figures, as it were. And I'm not sure, but I think the smooth-looking guy you saw there, a very interesting development. He could well be part of Harrison Clark Rickaby's, which is the solicitor company, which has been engaged in the fraud since the beginning. And they actually, we found out, are now doubling up as not only the solicitors, but as the running the security for yesterday. So we've got them just literally amalgamating all these things together. So it was a fantastic day, a fantastic public response yesterday. I mean, I'm myself and Linda are really humbled by the amount of people that came and supported us, and it was really showed people power and boots on the ground in these matters. And I'm honoured to have actually been at the event, even though they were hoping I was going to be the victim of it. I wasn't.
Guy, is this in any way related to the Barclays fraud?
No. I mean, what happened, the Barclays fraud was going on, and then what happened is a local solicitor, that one I'd been in jail with, and he's been done for benefit fraud, called Michael Horn, who isn't really a solicitor, because he can't be a solicitor under the standard basic requirements of the SRA rules. He put in a claim against me to get an injunction against me for some reason, and try to get £20,000 off me, which I obviously wouldn't pay. And then that set in motion then all the things that went on with Barclays and everything else. But no, this property is absolutely nothing to do with Barclays. It's on a mortgage. We've had it for 9 years. Is it 9 years? 7 years, sorry. But we're not behind any great deal with the mortgage or anything, and they're not trying to possess it. They don't want anything to do with it. In fact, we've informed them that there's a fraudulent matter going on, and of course I've got private criminal prosecutions going against the individuals in this matter, and I even showed that to the bailiffs yesterday, which means that their civil matters are irrelevant, really, when there's criminal matters going on against the parties involved in the actions against us. So we try to put it on a level footing.
Right, so Guy, when you were there at the wall with the bailiff, what sort of, you were saying that what he was doing wasn't right. What was he countering with? What was he saying to you?
Well, nonsense, really. It's almost, what you get is you get either willful blindness or cognitive dissonance. And, even to the point where they don't understand, I mean, we've had a huge debate about what a judge is. And I'm not a judge, judges are important. I said, no, judges work for us. Judges work for the court, and we've got to do what they say. And I say, yeah, but not if he don't seal or sign the documentation that he's supposed to be presenting as his work. and not if people don't owe the money which they're supposed to owe. So, for instance, on this property, there's not even a charge against me, and I've been trying to get the actual court documentation off the court so we can have it forensically examined, because we're literally in a position where there's not even a charge to the land registry in this matter against me, and they're trying to take my house. So if there's judges might be at home now thinking that they can take anybody's house based on no evidence and nothing at all. Well, that's what they're doing anyway. So we've got to put our foot down with these people, and we've got to get bodies on the ground, and we've all got to go around helping each other, because otherwise they're just going to start robbing us, and they're trying it with me big time, because they know we've uncovered the fraudulent nature of what they're doing inside the court service. They know that we know the difference between seals and stamps and unsigned documentation, and they're trying to cover their tracks as fast as they can and get me out of the game. And so then, what he was saying must have been nonsense. Look, he's out in the street. So fair enough. If that's what they brought to our door, that's what we're going to be bringing to their door. And criminal offences will flow and are currently in the court system against the participants in the crime. But there you go. The bailiffs weren't really that interested in looking at. Well, they wouldn't even take a document off me. The police did, in all fairness, and the police were completely different from what happened at Bodden Manor. They as you know, Brian, you had a good talk to the inspector, who doesn't basically understand court documents, but you yourself did a very good job with him.
Well, if before you come in, Luke, because I know you've got a question. If I just respond to that. The inspector took me back to his vehicle so that I could have a look at the documents that were actually being used against you, the ones that he'd had to respond to. And he was showing me court documents from Herefordshire County Court. They had a stamp on, but they didn't have any signature on. But the point he made to me, and I think this is a fair point, he said, I am supposed to be reacting in my work to the instructions that I receive. And if I was to say the moment I'm handed a document from a solicitor or from the court, I've reason to believe this is fraudulent, at the moment we could not do our policing. So he says that basically when he is given a document which comes from a court, as it stands at the moment, he reacts to that document on the basis that it is a bona fide court document, to which I said, well, that's fine, but when you've now started to get the proof that there is fraud and perjury being committed in the courts, you've got a different task. You've got to challenge it. To which he said, that's difficult. So I think there were some real points being raised. Do I think that the police on duty yesterday had started to think about what was actually going on? Do I think the police inspector, who you kindly told me had been at Boddenham a few weeks ago, had he started to think? I think the answer is yes. But it's obvious that even reasonably senior police officers like an inspector are flummoxed as to what they can actually do. But we just pointed out, and I know that members of the public talking to the police were saying, well, if you don't start to get a grip on this, you're going to be suffering as well. So I think maybe, Guy, we're at this tipping point where there are police who know that there are major problems now in Britain's courts. They know fraudulent documents are being issued. But how do the police secure a prosecution when we know that the Crown Prosecution Office itself is corrupt? Well, that's my personal opinion. I think I'm allowed to say that on air. My personal opinion is the CPS is corrupt. And therefore, the police have to use that in order to progress charges against courts. Don't know whether you'd like to respond to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it all boils down to the fact that the courts have got a memorandum of understanding with the police. And that memorandum of understanding is not legally binding. It's just a memorandum of understanding, how to cooperate with each other. And it's quite easy for the police, and I've said this to them, we could train them and give them a day's training in identifying legitimate court documents. And you would have the basics then to see any document and know whether it's fraudulent or not. You know, you don't have to go deep into the forensics of it. Just by sight, you can see that whether a document's fraudulent or not. And and because they're claiming that seals are stamps are the seals, and they're not. And obviously, these judges, if they're doing work, as I've said before about MOTs, if you went to a garage to get an MOT, that is a statutory instrument. But if you came out and saw that they hadn't been signed, you would go back in the garage and say to the guy, sorry mate, you're busy, I know that, but you've forgotten to sign my MOT. And it wouldn't be legitimate without the signature. And it's the same thing with these orders coming from courts. If it's their work, they should be prepared to sign it off and seal it. And this just isn't the case. It's absolutely on an industrial scale. And what we're learning now, and of course, all the good people that were there yesterday, but showing us and telling us what's been going on in their lives. And we know that the people, they're destroying bankruptcy files in 3 years now, and they're admitting in the court. The court's even admitting, I showed the document for Sheffield saying that they didn't know anything about that document. Well, Hereford Court contacted me saying, a writ did go out on that date from this court. So I said, right, is it the writ that I've given you? Because I serviced them that document and said, is it this document correct? And they contacted me and said, well, we don't know because we don't keep them here. And we don't keep copies. So, so the whole thing is nonsense, but easily brought to book. I can appreciate what the police officer is saying. But there are laws to deal with this. The majority of the laws are under the County Courts Act 1984, Section 135, using fraudulent instruments purporting for them to come from a court. Because we know these solicitors' offices and these bailiff companies are crafting and drafting their own documents, putting court stamps on it, not court seals. That's why it's exactly the same as with the council tax situation. It's never seen the inside of a court. But of course, most people will pay up thinking it's gone through a court. Yeah. And so I can understand why they're doing it, but then when they come to execute the document, don't tell me that it's legitimate, because it's not, and it's fraudulent. And any bailiffs that are engaged in that, once I've given them notification that these documents are fraudulent, it's their duty to go away and investigate it. Otherwise, they will be not only fully commercially liable to me, they will be criminally liable, and I will charge them. And I have charged bailiffs, and I've got 2 bailiffs from British Gas in the dock on Friday for burglary and using a fraudulent instrument. And I will continue to charge them if they continue to break the law. So these sort of knuckle-dragging idiot thugs who going around thinking, as you rightly said, thinking there's some sort of Californian sort of patrol group or whatever. I mean, they've got to wake up, because they'll find themselves in the dock, and their company will drop them like a sack of potatoes once they realise there's crimes against them.
Yeah, brilliantly said, Guy. Brilliant.
Guy, you are an inspiration to a lot of people at the moment, so you do keep going, and we're going to give you as much support we can. What I will say on the subject of the police is, of course, the police heavily indoctrinated during their training. They are taught what the law is not. And this is causing them big problems. We know, for instance, that retired police officers who broadly support the movement to try and sort this country out and get some sort of reality back to law and order, but senior retired police officers who still think that statute law is more powerful than common law. So we've got some very ingrained opinions, and this is what we've got to try and do. It comes down to education. Many people were asking me yesterday what we thought about this. How do we get the message across to people? Well, we need as many people as possible to be talking in the streets and over the internet, but we also need to be producing more material, guidance booklets, etc., so that each one of those smiling bobbies could have a little book on common law put into their hands. So UK column team are going to work hard on this. British Constitution, get ready for a big relaunch of the website.
Not a reset, a relaunch.
Definitely a relaunch. And basically we are going to be pushing for as much information to come round about the Constitution as possible. Otherwise we are going to be in a very bad position.
Can I just ask Guy a quick question? Guy, what happened after they all left? I mean, is this going to be like the end of the matter, or are you going to expect them all to turn up again? They've gone off between the tails and legs, right? Maybe to regroup. What can you see happening next, Guy?
Well, who knows? I mean, when you're dealing with criminals, all you know is that if they think there's meat on the bones, they'll try and come back.
Yeah.
All I can do really is I put this matter before the criminal court, which is a real court, not a fake one like the county courts, which aren't fit for purpose. They're still operating in their county court sort of processing, even with illegitimate documentation. So what I will do on Friday, when I have the two bailiffs in the dock from British Gas, the senior revenue collectors from there, then I will be putting a proposition to the judge at that, showing him that there's not even a charge against me on this property, and that these people are coming around with fraudulent instruments, and I want a stay of any sort of execution or a freezing of it through the criminal court, pending the result of the criminal informations that I'm laying on July the 16th against Michael Horn, the solicitor, and Douglas Paul Walker, the alleged trustee, who won't stand on. He won't even stand on a pain of perjury and say that I'm bankrupt, because I'm not. And so we'll see. I mean, what I'm going to do is we're merging the criminal court up with the county court here, Lou, which they don't like doing, because that's what the memorandum of understanding is between the police and everything, because they know that oddities in the county court will cause a problem. Well, they've got more than oddities, they've got industrial scale fraud, and so it has to be addressed. We're prepared to train the police and show them what's legitimate and what's not, what's come from the court and what's come from the bailiffs and the solicitors, and it's down to them to do their job. Otherwise, we shouldn't have to be victims and then policing the matter, and then ultimately being the Crown prosecutors in the matter. And unfortunately, that's what I'm doing, that's what I have to do, and that's what I will continue to do. And with the help of all the good people around the country who are engaged in this, and the support of yourselves and everybody else, we will get some resolution on this, even if I'm living in a cardboard box somewhere. I've got nothing to lose then, so but they better watch out at the moment that happens.
Guy, you're a total inspiration, and good luck to you and Linda.
I'll just answer one question. Somebody said, why were the police involved if essentially it's a civil matter? Well, the police were there to keep the peace.
Crowd control.
And effectively the police said that to the bailiffs and according to the police, they reported back to the courts that if the courts and the bailiffs continued to press the matter, the police didn't feel that they would be able to keep the peace. And that was the point at which the bailiffs pulled away. But I'm just going to bring in the comment from the senior police officer there that it was the impeccable behaviour of those present which actually won the day, because it's very hard to argue against reason and common sense. So if we finish on a positive note, let's have a look again at the good people on the ground. Guy Taylor there, of course, on the right. But it was ordinary people deciding not to sit there behind their computers, but to get up and travel in order to help others. If we're going to deal with this terrible situation in UK, we need ordinary people in their millions to do the right thing. If anybody's talking violence, they are clearly not on side with any initiative pushed by UK Column or the British Constitution Group. These people are trouble and they're not needed. If you want to do something, you've got to start shouting, and you've got to withdraw your consent and to be visible on the streets. Exactly. So there we are. Well, we're going to say bye-bye from a now even hotter studio.
We're melting. It's the Column meeting tonight, 7:30.
Absolutely. 7:30 in the George Hotel, Plymouth. Hope to see as many people there as possible. And if you don't know about Reset, then start watching the UK Column broadcast, start researching yourself. But our view is very, very dangerous attempt to destabilise what remains of Britain's constitution and freedoms. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.